is Prince Gideon Olarenwaju, and I'm an educational development practitioner. I really want to, appreciate the organizers for giving me the opportunity to be one of the speakers for this year. The title of my talk for today would be Universalizing Basic Education, how to get every child to be able to read and write. So I'll get into it. Literacy changes everything. Literacy enables growth. But imagine a world where we all, both seated in the hall as myself, cannot read and write. But do you know that for millions of us who can, the ability to be able to identify, understand, interpret, create, and communicate is a significant component of our lives. But do you also know that the world is in a current state where we have literacy crises across the world? Across the world, there are over 800 million people who can neither read, write, or do basic arithmetic. Of these illiterate population, about 500 million of them are women and girls. About 250 million of them are children. In Nigeria, historically, millions of primary school-age children lack the foundational reading, writing, and mathematical skills that they need to either enroll, complete, or transition to secondary education, or even be engaged in gainful employment. But before one can read to learn, one must learn to read. So reading with comprehension is unarguably the most important skill a child needs to learn in their early school years. Without the basic proficiency in reading and writing, children would most likely fail to become numerate and are at the higher risk of being dropped out of school by themselves or by their family. Now, you also agree with me that higher level of behavioral regulation is also associated with high level of language abilities as well as literacy. Despite most students attending primary school today, like never before, a shocking high number of them has continually failed to read by the time that they graduate. There is even a World Bank statistic that says that 53%, a whopping 53% of children in low and middle income countries, which Nigeria is one of them, are unable to read, write, or understand a simple text at the age of 10. Globally, this is regarded as the global learning crisis, and these individuals are regarded as the learning poor. This rate is much higher across sub-Saharan Africa, where learning poverty is at a staggering 87%, the highest of all time. Now, despite multiple interventions that non-profit organizations like the one that I run, like many of them scattered across Nigeria or even across Africa, have put together over the years to promote educational provision and accessibility, we still see that more than 43% of children in our world today falls into the category of the learning poor. Now, what is the consequences of this development challenge that we currently face? Apart from the fact that literacy is a huge component of lifelong learning, we cannot, I repeat, we cannot afford to deny the current and upcoming generations of Nigerian children the opportunity to develop the knowledge, the tools, and the support for them to develop foundational literacy skills for empowerment and for sustainable livelihood. And that is why it is highly significant and pivotal that we universalize basic literacy and enable our learners to be able to develop the needful skills today for them to become productive workers and engaged citizens tomorrow. Now, the question begs that how can we universalize basic literacy? And I'm going too fast, so let me take it slow. Several high-income countries like Finland, like Hong Kong, like Japan, like Poland, Russia, Sweden, has their learning poverty rate below 2%. Low middle-income countries like Vietnam, like South Korea, have also gone far in achieving universal primary literacy for their children. Now, a key concept in education is the idea of translocation of ideas or translocation of innovations. How we can adopt proven interventions or proven policies from these high-income countries to low and middle-income countries like Nigeria. And I have 3 different points that I think we can adopt to ensure that by the end of 2030, the goal of ensuring that every child access equitable, inclusive, and quality education can become a reality. The first one is that we need to assure political and technical commitment to making all our children to become literate. You will agree with me that every policy today has its foundation rooted in governance. And when I mean governance, I mean political leadership. Our governments across educational authorities must commit to building policies that will ensure the goal that every child can read, and then we can identify targets where we can finance these targets to make that reality for every child at the end of primary school. Assessment tool needs to be designed that at this stage of learning, primary education, we must align primary school assessment to be in line with reading targets, and we must monitor progress towards them. A huge example of how we can mobilize resources to be able to finance this is a results-based financing. According to the World Bank, countries perform better in aiming at development outcomes or targets like literacy when you fund them based on outcomes of their educational system. It's as simple as funding literacy skills and only giving governments the money when you can say 75% of our students can read and write at the age of 10. A very interesting example is the municipality of Sobral in Brazil. As late as 1970, Sobral designed a policy that ensures that the usage of assessment as well as a focused curriculum on literacy, which is being implemented at the school level, enabled a lot of their students to be able to read and write. When students can read and write to a basic minimum level of about 50%, there is salary increase for the teachers that teaches them. Now, that means that every teacher assigned a student to be able to teach them to become literate and numerate will be encouraged because there is an incentive. So incentivization of efforts on the angle of the teachers as well as that of the student can be a huge form of tool that can be leveraged in ensuring that literacy skills can be advanced. It would interest you that right now, Sobral in Brazil is ranked first among many municipalities that shows that educational quality in Brazil is being measured by literacy outcomes. So the first point is that we must assure political as well as technical commitment to making all children to become literate. The second point will be that we need to ensure effective literacy instruction by supporting our teachers, right? There is a popular adage that says that the quality of an educational system cannot outlive the quality of its teachers, right? There is no technological solution, no technological tool can outpace or outshine the value, the significance, the effectiveness of our teachers. And for us to be able to improve or increase literacy skills for our children today or in the nearest future, teachers are the first frontline workers that we need to invest in. Teachers need to be supported to obtain the knowledge and the skills that they need to teach reading. Now, in many settings, this begins with creating detailed and highly structured teaching guides for literacy instruction. You cannot teach what you don't know. There was a time in Edo State that we learned that a governor administered assessment or tests for primary school teachers. There was a widespread news that a large percentage of these teachers failed this exam. Why that is interesting is at the same time colossal. I believe that it is high time we geared up the system of ensuring that the best graduates are employed in engaging our children as teachers. A huge example to look at would be the Teach for Nigeria model, which is adopted from the Teach for All network. It is integral that we provide tailored and individualized training for our teachers such that they can now have positive impact on the learning outcomes or academic attainment of our students. For example, in South Africa, specialized reading coaches are employed to monitor and train teachers and provide them ongoing professional development to ensure that they can improve student proficiency when it comes to reading. It was observed that across 4 months, more than 35% of students in these classrooms that have these teachers double their outcomes based on the fact that we have tailored support for teachers. Now, this is another idea that I believe can be adopted within the Nigerian education system to ensure that we can better support our students or our learners to be able to read and write and do basic arithmetic. Another huge point would be that we need to be able to provide at least quality, age-appropriate book per child. The more children read, the better they get at reading. So the availability of quality, age-appropriate reading materials would make a tangible difference in helping them to build the skills that is necessary for reading fluently. However, in many countries, with Nigeria inclusive, students simply do not have the materials to read. And who do we blame for this, right? Our government. It is integral and important that we pay attention to the provision of reading materials and textual resources for our students. And it begins with equipping the classroom with the rightful set of resources. And it could be print, it could be technological reading resources that enables that our students can explore the world of reading. And when they read, they're able to acquire the textual strength for them to be able to read, write, and do basic arithmetic. So the third point I mentioned is the provision of quality, age-appropriate books for our students. The final one will be that we need to teach the student to read in the language that they best speak and understand. Literacy is not a test of the ability to speak English language. It's the ability to be able to express yourself and communicate in a language that you understand. If that language is Yoruba, so be it. If that language is Hausa, so be it. If that language is Igbo or any of the diverse local dialects that we have in Nigeria, it is integral that our students are equipped with the instructional capabilities to be able to engage and interpret in these languages. There need not to be a huge emphasis on the acquisition of English language as a basic conversational skills. If it is their local language, it is important that we teach them to read and write in that language that they best speak and understand. Now, the science of reading lay out a clear path for all students to have their best chance to become capable, engaged, lifelong learner. It is upon us, and not only the government, I'm talking to everybody seated in the audience today, it is upon us to also create the atmosphere, the environment, the tools, the solutions that can ensure we can put an end to learning poverty. And we should get every child to be able to read. It's not going to be an easy task to achieve, no doubt. But in the face of a global pandemic like this that is further jeopardizing learning outcomes, we all can play a part. And let's ask, how will someone like myself play a part? I'll give you an example of what I did during the COVID-19 pandemic. I rallied my colleagues and my nonprofit organization to design something that we regard as Nigeria's first mobile tech application that enables learners to be able to read and write and engage with text using USSD and SMS. More than ever, targeted efforts in eliminating illiteracy are critical for the millions of children and their families across the world. And we know that in one way or the other, as we work together to attain the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, education is at the core, so is literacy. Thank you very much.